Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to see you all here. You're all welcome to the first webinar that we're holding, a joint webinar between Szutest, a notified body, and ADRES. We are very happy for the chance to have Szutest as our guests in this webinar series. Just a few words about ourselves and then about the webinar. We are a consultancy for startup companies in the health sector, medical device, and pharmaceutical companies. We work in the USA, Europe, and Israel. We give regulatory consultation and manufacturing and QA and clinical consultation. And through our communication with many startups and medical device companies, through the communities, the WhatsApp communities that we are members of, or the one that we are managing, we came across many questions of medical device companies, members, about working with notified bodies. And I can say that in general, there are two types of questions. The first one is, what would notified bodies expect in certain situations? And the second sort of question is how to best work with notified bodies. And I think that I'm not saying anything that will be new to anyone, but I think that many companies struggle with the work with notified bodies. There's a lot of time that it takes, and the efforts are very big. And many companies are looking for ways to work more, I would say, easily with notified bodies, knowing exactly how to work, what to do. And I came across Szutest through an Israeli company that works with them, and told me great things about them. And I had a chance to talk to Ugoz, who is our esteemed guest today, a few times, and I had a chance to get a very good impression, and I thought that it would be a very good chance for our audience to get to hear the perspective of a notified body. So what we are planning for this session today is we'll start with a few words about the regulatory framework. My mother, the head, the president, owner, and the founder of ADRES, will say a few words about the regulatory framework, and then we will have a discussion between my mother and Ugoz. We gathered quite a few questions from our audience, and we won't be able to cover all of them, but this is why we're going to hold a series of events. I encourage you also, during the webinar, we have a Q&A section. You can add questions. If we have time to address them today, we will. If not, we will address them in future webinars. And now, please, Mother, if you can say a few words about yourself, and then Ugoz, please, and we can start. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Roy. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, as Roy said, I am the owner and president and founder of ADRES. ADRES was established 16 years ago. I have 37 years experience in the pharmaceutical area. I've worked for a biotechnology company in Israel for 21 years, where I was most of the time responsible for the regulatory aspects and quality aspects. I successfully manage and establish and manage a quality system for medical devices, biologicals, and drugs for Europe, the United States, and other countries. And since the establishment of ADRES, we are working as a team to support startup companies, as Roy mentioned. I personally am also a mentor in several projects like biodesign to different TTOs in Israel, and I am also giving a course on development of biologicals, regulatory and quality aspects in the development of biologicals in the Tel Aviv University master degree. So I am really excited about the opportunity to share with you our experience, Szutest, and our experience with regards to medical devices, and I hope that you will enjoy that. Thank you. August.
Yeah. Thank you very much for, first of all, inviting us and giving us this opportunity to talk to your clients and the audience. This is Oğuz Savaş. I am the head of notified body Szutest GmbH. We are a notified body located in Frankfurt, Germany. We cover a good range of products under MDR regulation. We are a team member notified body. Besides the notified body activities, we also provide testing services and ISO 13485 certification for medical devices. And currently, we are also working on getting our NDSAP and IVDR designations and authorizations. And this is basically who I am. I am originally an electrical engineer, and I have been in this sector in the last 17 years. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll start the webinar itself. So as I mentioned, Rivka Mother, you will start with an outline, and then we'll head to the questions. So good luck to you too.
Thank you. So as you all know, what happened here? As you all know, the medical devices in Europe are regulated today under the medical device regulation. Initially, it was by the Medical Device Directive, which became finally fully implemented in June 1998. I just wanted to share with you that in 1993, I participated in a event of the, if I am not mistaken, the Drug Information Association, and it was then explained that soon there will be a new regulation about pharmaceutical products in Europe, which was the issue of the establishment of EMA and the CHMP for drugs and biologics, and that for the first time in Europe, there will be regulation related to medical devices. And then, as I mentioned, in 1998, this Medical Device Directive became fully implemented. I personally was involved in the approval of the first, one of the first medical devices under the Medical Device Directive in 1995 for the company that I worked for. And now, as you know, the medical device regulation became effective in May 2021. And both the MDD and the MDR talked about the function, the role of notified bodies, which are designated organizations responsible for assessing whether devices comply with the legal and safety requirements set out by the MDR. And what is interesting about that is that those are private organizations, but they are regulated and controlled by the local national authorities. As we already mentioned, we have the pleasure of having with us August Savas, which is the head of one of the notified bodies in Germany. I apologize for not being able to address all the questions that we got, but I think that managed to gather them in a way that will cover most of the questions that we got. And as Rory already mentioned, we will have a follow-up webinar in which we will be able to address the additional topics which were mentioned. So now we will start with the actual webinar. August, I will ask you some questions, and then you can take it from there. The first question is about a manufacturer. Can he transfer the MDR application to another notified body? How does it work? What are your recommendations? I just want to mention that we know that a lot of companies have now delays and backlogs because of the situation of the transfer from MDD to MDR. And that is one of the the challenge that most of them are facing, and I know that you have some ways of overcoming it, and so please share it with us.
Yeah, thank you. Rivka, first of all, let me start saying that it is personally very nice for me to be able to speak to a professional which experienced the starting point of the directive, because the experience means a lot in our business, even though these are laws, but it can only be fully understood with a lot of experience and practice. We have experienced this also during the transition from MDD to MDR. So for me, it's very nice to talk to you and share some experience with you. And continuing with your question, if a manufacturer has already applied to a notified body, MDR notified body, but is not satisfied with the process, maybe there are delays and something, and can this manufacturer transfer the MDR application? The question is yes, even though in the law, generally transfers mean a transfer of the certificate, but especially for in the transition period, MDCG guidances make clear that the manufacturer can also transfer the MDR application. And as you indicated, we also received some applications from manufacturers who are already applied to an MDR notified body, but waiting for a long time in the queue. And we are all aware that, especially when the number of the notified bodies available in the system, it was very difficult to work. And with a notified body, even getting some offers and codes could be very problematic. But at the current stage, especially for my notified body, we have a good capacity to handle ready manufacturers that I can say.
Thank you. I can mention also that because of the transition, the number of qualified notified body was reduced, if I am not mistaken, and some of the notified bodies also needed to go through a process of being approved for activities that until the transition were not specifically defined as areas of expertise for the notified bodies. So that is another challenge that we have today. So the next question that we have is about the overall timeline from initial contact with the notified body to certification, and if you can also explain a bit about the process. What does it take from the first contact until full certification is completed?
Okay, so I can divide the conformity assessment process into several steps, and I can start with the pre-application. The pre-application is the phase that we get offers from the notified bodies, And then the formal application. Formal application is the phase that we formally apply, choose a notified body and apply and submit all of our documentation to the notified body. Then what we call the conformity assessment process starts. And it is divided to QMS audits and as well as TD reviews. And there are some subdivisions to them, maybe stage 1 and stage 2 audit for QMS, and maybe biocompatibility review or clinical review for the technical documentation review. And after we complete these steps, we have a phase called decision-making phase. And after the decision-making, we have the certificate in place. I can say that, for a medium range of a product, our products are classified from class 1 up to class 3. And when I say a medium, it could be like class 2A product. And if the manufacturer is ready, we can estimate a time period around 10 to 12 months. For sure, the number of iteration and questions and answers and the ability of the reaction ability of the manufacturer is very important for this aspect. But I can roughly estimate that time period for a medium range of a product. If we go in a higher risk of a product, we can increase the duration, and in some instances for some very ready manufacturers, it can go a little bit lower, but this is the medium range of estimation for me.
So there is a specific question about the time from a successful audit to certification. Is there a definition during that process that the audit will be at a certain moment, or that can be flexible between the projects and the agreement between the client and the notified body?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand the background of the question. In the past, when you have the audit, that means that you're in a certain stage of a process. But this is in current setup a little bit flexible. You can have your QMS audit maybe prior to your TD review, and in some instances it could be later than your TD review. So having the audit, calculating the certification from the audit is not very, maybe cannot work always. So I think we should talk about the, from start to end, the optimum and mean values.
But for instance, the outcome of the audit, how soon the client will get an assessment or a response, whether it was a successful audit, whether there are open issues, how does it work?
At the end of the audit, there should be a recommended decision, the result of the audit is immediately there.
Mm-hmm.
But as I indicated, the conformity assessment process consists of several aspects and stages. And for example, it is theoretically, acceptable to say that you can have a successful audit, but maybe your TD review is not successful.
Yeah.
So you have your results immediately after the audit, but there will be several steps.
Okay, thank you. So now that there are some questions about the clinical aspects, one of them is the approach to Art 6110 for clinical evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can answer that one, and then I will get to the next one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's one of the hot topics in the current MDR, because let me just do a quick wrap up. Clinical data was one of the biggest challenges of the MDR. Mm-hmm. And I think it is reasonable for it to become like that. And, for many instances, I think people misunderstood the way the correct way to approach the clinical data. And sometimes the regulation itself by the wording couldn't provide clear wording. And we have seen different terminologies and different interpretations, especially for Article 61 of the MDR, whether, you know, what type of classes of a product need clinical investigation, which does not need, what is the aspect for the legacy devices, and so on and so forth, and what is the clinical data. I think this is one of the most challenging terminologies currently. So this, I think, somehow forced or somehow created a position for us to look at Article 6110 in a deeper way. Maybe we had this concept in MDD also, because the science is not changed, but maybe in MDD we didn't have to look at further and in detail. But now I think we are starting to look at, okay, we had this 6110, so maybe it's wise not to force every medical device to have a direct clinical benefit. And especially for those kind of devices, I think it was and it is now useful to say that my device doesn't have a direct clinical benefit, say for an autoclave, for a sterilizer, for example. So this device does not have a direct clinical benefit to the patient. So it should have been Article 61, namely in MDD, and should have been Article 61 in MDR now. But the ecosystem is now having a look at it. But we see also a tendency that sometimes some manufacturers, when they struggle, even though they have direct clinical benefits, or even though they should have their clinical data, or they could reach the clinical data, due to some organizational issues, they try to force to go through Article 6110, which maybe we could have a little warning. This is not a generic, shortcut circuit that every manufacturer can pass through. This is the only pathway for the devices that doesn't have direct clinical benefits, like autoclave, and mainly lots of them are accessories, mainly to another device. Yeah.
Thank you. Wow. I must say that I read that article and I didn't understand that the way that you explained. So thank you very much, because it is not really very clear the way it is written.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now the next question is about the transition from for legacy devices which were approved by the MDD. So which clinical data and post-marketing clinical study process is required for that, for those legacy devices?
For that, we have a specific guidance, MDCG guidance, and this MDCG guidance creates a list of data grades, clinical data. So starting from 1 to, I guess, 7 or 8, and saying that for Class 3 in implantable devices, the data quality or grade should be higher than 4.3, and for other devices, maybe lower grades of data could be used. So here, in order to be able to answer the question in a very correct way, we need to know the classification of the device. But if it is a high-risk device, then the device, the legacy device, should have its own clinical data. How we interpret this requirement is that, okay, if you were in the market a long time ago, so how you indicated that you were equivalent to a device which has the clinical investigation data at the beginning. Now it's your turn to prove that your device was acting as the equivalent device, and your device was acting in a good clinical performance and safety throughout your history. For that reason, for some high risk manufacturers needed to initiate data collection activity for their transition to MDR. These activities are mainly retrospective or prospective clinical studies, post-market studies. For low-risk devices, the MDD and MDR didn't change that much. The surveys and the routine data collection methods can still be used.
So it's actually to develop a protocol for post-marketing surveillance and collect the data and provide that to the notified body. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and this protocol needs to take MDCG guidance into consideration, look at its classification, and choose the allowed type of grade of clinical data for their devices.
Great, thank you. Now, I was thinking also, and I have a question here from the participants. What happens if I submit the technical documentation with missing data? And what if I want to have like a rolling submission, providing some aspects of the technical file early in the process and then adding the additional data later on? How does it work? Is there any time frame in which I need to do that, or it's an open process?
Yeah, normally when we look at the dynamics of the conformity assessment system, it is a phase where all preclinical and pre-market clinical activities are finished. So meaning that the manufacturer is 100% sure about the clinical safety and performance, as well as the safety and performance of the device, and it is verified prior to approach to a notified body. But we have an exception in the transition period. The manufacturers may approach to a notified body after lodged a formal application to a notified body and say that, okay, they are aware of some of the documentation missing or be under update and under maintenance, and they may be repeating some of the verifications, even though they have the originals in place, but they need to somehow repeat it, and they need some time. If they listed the incomplete activities for their technical documentation, so the notified body will assess it and may be in a position to accept it. So this is in this aspect also the declared timelines are very important. Say that, for example, a manufacturer goes to a notified body and say that, okay, I need to update my risk management and I need 3 years for that. For sure, it won't be reasonable. So the notified body do an assessment and check that if the scenario is realistic, so maybe in a position to say that, okay, I accept this gradual submission. And in some instances also in the application review, we identify some gaps, and we also provide a certain amount of time to a manufacturer to reflect these gaps and correct the issues. So short question is yes, they can apply, especially in the transition period with some missing technical documentation, considering that they have a list of declarations for the incomplete activities, and these declarations should be fulfilled by the manufacturer.
Thank you.
welcome.
Okay, so the next question is, what is the structural dialogue and what is not?
Yeah. So this is also an emerging topic, hot topic in the system. And let me also do a kind of background experience sharing session before I answer this question. I think the core reason for the structured dialogue request is that, you know, in the MDD times, some notified bodies, unfortunately, were in a position to approve the clinical protocols of the manufacturers before they start certification, which they shouldn't have done it. Because since you're going to be reviewing the outcome of the study, you cannot be in a position to make a pre-approval. But and this created a very good comfort for the manufacturers. Even though I can understand that, you know, starting to a conformity assessment for starting a clinical investigation, say, and you know, having a result at the end, your study is not good. This could be very damaging, even though I understand that. But still, the question is that who should be in place to maybe solve this problem? And MDR specifically put some wording to eliminate this pre-approvals before the conformity assessment stage, and provided and I assigned a specific task to expert panels. So if a manufacturer is in a position to say that they are not very sure about their clinical strategy and protocols, actually they can apply to expert panel and they can get an approval from them, not from the notified bodies. But then I think the industry somehow wants the notified bodies to be in a similar position before. So when we say that, okay, what we understand from the structured dialogue is that, okay, it's a need and it's a good tool. And, you know, a lot of the times we can also see that as a manufacturer, when you go to their websites and when you try to read some documents before you apply to a notified body, it's not easy to learn from it. It's complex, so you don't know how to fill in some information. You don't know what is the sequence of the processes when you approach to a notified body. Sometimes even you may need to ask them their positions about certain issues in the EU medical device ecosystem, and this is a real need. So what we say, a structured dialogue is a good tool. It's a structured dialogue, but the structured dialogue is not a pre-approval. So what we do, what we say in a short way, that it's a way of asking questions that we could give the same answer to every manufacturer manufacturing the same product. So it shouldn't be client-specific questions. So they can ask the sequence of the conformity assessment stages. They can ask whether what we understand from Article 6110, as you asked. They can ask what is our position about, for example, dental implants, if they are wet or not. But they cannot come and say that, okay, I'm going to make a clinical investigation and I decided to go for 30 patients. Please approve it. And please say in a meeting that the 30 patients is okay. So this is not a structured dialogue.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, since I had the experience of working under the MDD for a long time, that was really an advantage to be able to discuss not to get an approval, but to have a discussion upfront about some aspects of the clinical trial in order to know that potentially will be acceptable. And actually for drugs and biologics, that is something that happens. The regulatory authorities, they do provide guidance with regards to that. I understand the challenge here about having, because you can some notified body can provide a lot of advice and it is not allowed, and some others will be more strict, like what you just said, in not opening that to a full protocol review and approval prior to the conformity assessment. I understand the challenges, and that is something that the industry needs to face. No other option. I understand.
Yeah.
So there is one specific question. I am just adding it now, that came from the audience now. It's about the approach concerning high focus ultrasound based aesthetic legacy devices. Would not consider it under Annex 11.
Annex 11 or Annex 16?
Sorry, 16. I am sorry for missed that. Yeah, 16.
Yeah.
Do you see the question? Can you see that?
No, I don't see, but I think I understand.
Okay.
I will not scroll down and up, but yeah. So yes, in the MDD times, it was not clear if that directive covers cosmetic devices or not, especially for the devices that are able to change the anatomy.
Yeah.
So, the mode of action is very medical, but it is not clear if they should be regarded as a medical device or not. And MDR is fixing this problem with bringing up Annex 16 concept to the table. And Annex 16 concept allow us to have non-medical purposes, cosmetic purposes, like for device, for example. But here the issue is that if we say that we are non-medical, we are cosmetic, then we should have a clinical data for our cosmetic performance. Medical safety, but cosmetic performance. So this is one of the important aspects of it. And generally, the problem occurs when you get your certificate as a legacy device, as a medical device, but you use your device in cosmetic centers. So data is from cosmetics, but the approval is from medical. So there's a conflict, which means that in the post-market phase, you will not be able to say that my device is acting as I expected because you documented that your device is going to act medical, but the real world data is from the cosmetic performance. But for sure, these devices can apply to Annex 6 as an Annex 16 device, and we can certify them. We have covered for Annex 16 devices. If they think that some devices, really, the manufacturer is able to choose the intended purpose, because they also have medical intended purpose. If their device is solely for medical intended purpose, then it is also allowed. We can have their certificates under MDR, and some devices have dual purposes. That is also certifiable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I have another question from the audience.
Okay.
And that it has to do with the rolling submission and with the approach to Article 61 and what you mentioned about prior prior consultation. The question is, is it possible to submit a modular submission, meaning starting with the clinical evaluation report, which will not include actual clinical data? And if the information would be sufficient, then no clinical trials will be needed.
No, I am not available for this concept because, you know, generally when we receive a file, we review it and we find a non-conform. And generally, when we find a non-conformity, a notified body may have either limited rounds of fixing it or limited duration of fixing it. So if you apply to a notified body and if you submit a file, and if the notified body says that you need a clinical data, so then you need 4 months or 3 rounds to have the clinical data, which is not practical. So a regular clinical investigation takes a lot of time. So this approach is not acceptable.
Thank you. I suspected that would be the answer, but I wanted to hear it from you.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
Welcome.
So we have a few more questions. I will try to do that really quickly. I think that you already addressed the question of pre-application and application, correct? So we don't need to get into it now. How do MDR conformity assessment handle performance and state of the art?
Yeah, this is also a good topic. I'll try to touch down to it in a brief way. The MDD were mainly focusing on the safety, but not the performance. And the standards also evolved in a way to really focus on safety and minimum requirements, but not the performance. And we end up having certified devices that are not acting very good, but still on the market. Okay, they don't harm. They don't create harm, but they don't, fulfill the intended use properly. Meaning that, okay, you have a thermometer, okay, it doesn't harm the patient, but it's not able to measure your forehead temperature correctly. So this is a faulty product. So I think this approach is being replaced by highlighting the performance. But we have a problem. So how do we gather the performance data, and how we are going to identify what type of performance is needed for our device? Then having the case that the standards does not help for this aspect, I think every manufacturer should be in a position to make a benchmarking investigation. When we say that benchmarking, it doesn't mean bench testing, or it doesn't mean rigorous testing. Sometimes making a real corresponding tables could be a good benchmarking study from publicly available data. But what we need to do that we need to investigate if the state of art information is published, and we need to compare the state of devices with our devices in a benchmarking study.
Thank you very much. And maybe the last 2 questions, because of time constraint.
We are nearing the end, so
yeah.
maybe just a couple of more questions.
Yes, so those are the 2 last questions that are somehow related. How do you see MDR transition evolving, and what are the expected reforms in EU medical device regulation ecosystem?
Yeah, maybe it would be surprising to hear from me to say that it is the transition is going in a good way. Why I say that? Because I think we need to understand the nature of change. Change is not easy. Change is necessary, but not easy. So I remember Canada had a CMD-CAS. It's a type of 13485 certification. And it stopped, and Canada replaced it with MD-SAP, and they need to postpone this regulation. So, when a lot of people is involved, it is not easy to make the change happens. So we need to stick to our decisions. So I think that the fluctuations we are having now is kind of natural. But I try to see the positive side. I see a lot of highly educated professionals are involved in the medical device ecosystem. It used to be not like that. I see that the manufacturers' quality departments are evolving in a good way. They are more talented. I think it's going in a good direction, even though we have to be honest to each other, each stakeholder, manufacturer, notified body, and consultants. Well, we need to criticize ourselves, and we need to change ourselves too. But I think it's going in a good direction. And in terms of reforms, yeah, there are some discussions in the EU, and notified bodies, especially team and member notified bodies, are always in favor of supporting if a change is required. And one important aspect of a call is that having fixed timelines for the conformity assessment. So we, as the notified bodies, we think that we are not against it. If it is a really tool that will fix some of the problems, then okay, we say that we will not be in a position to defend it. So we can have this fixed timelines. We can adopt ourselves if needed to fix timelines. But one question is that if manufacturer can adopt themselves to fix timelines too, that is a important question to be asked. And second is that digitalization. We have in the EU lots of projects going for digitalization, and one aspect would be digitalization of the conformity assessment system. And we have UDAMED going to be gradually available, and we have maybe another solution for the conformity assessment, digital conformity assessment, and we also support that aspect too. And there's a discussion whether the notified bodies should decrease the things they do for the recertification. And I think that could be a good criticism too. I think this could be workable. We are also in favor of rechecking whether we need to maybe eliminate some of the things that we do now for the recertification and maybe ease up the project. And another discussion is that maybe, especially for reporting changes from the manufacturer side, all the things needs to be reported to the notified body, and what is critical, what is not. I think the system needs a clarity on that also. And as the notified bodies, we are also in favor of that, because receiving a lot of change submissions is also very difficult for us to handle. And another aspect is the vigilance, the role of notified body in vigilance, because as we are not the market surveillance authority, we are not allowed to go to a hospital and investigate the situation and gather all of the data from the market. We have limited access. And the question is that really should the notified body always be reported for each incident and vigilance case? We think that we could also make an economy on this aspect, because currently MDR has a wording which can easily understand that every incident and every vigilance case needs to be reported to notified body. But it is open what should the notified body do after receiving the initial report. Sometimes it starts today, but it's end up 1 year later. So what we're gonna do in this period, it's not clear. And the notified bodies would be very happy to have a clarity on that aspect too. I think these are the mainly, yeah, for sure, the structured dialogue. And okay, I have two more things to highlight: the structured dialogue. And yes, the notified bodies are in favor of having structured dialogue if it is regulated in a good way, and if it is not crossing the border of the consultancy or pre-approvals or meeting approvals. And another aspect is that extending the list of well-established technology devices, as well as the acceptability of Article 6110. Our notified body is a member of Team MB working group on this aspect too. Our internal clinician, clinical unit manager, Dr. Chamer, is actively involved in the EU ecosystem to have these in place. And I think we're going to have an extended list of well-established technology devices, as well as maybe a kind of a guidance or kind of an understanding about the extended understanding of Article 6110. And one thing that I think the manufacturers are criticizing, and they are right about it, is that, you know, having the same data incorporated into several documents. For example, intended use, you copy it to PSUR, use SSCP, technical documentation. So a lot of repeating information, and you know, a good portion of the notified body's job is becoming a kind of a completeness check and integrity check. And we are having a lot of trouble on that, and receiving a lot of non-conformities, finding a lot of conformities on that. So I think this is also right criticism. Maybe EU will work on kind of a system to eliminate redundancy and repeating one information to be repeated in a lot of documents. So this could be a summary of our review. But the notified bodies are always in favor of the improvements. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Really, it was really a great discussion. The questions from the audience, those that we got previous to this webinar and the one that were raised today, also very interesting. And I believe that all of the participants can have an advantage and of having those questions asked, and your feedback. Really, thank you so much. It was really, really great. I just want to say that we got like 4 or 5 questions about combination products, which is not part of our webinar today. So we will focus on that on a dedicated webinar in the future. And if you have any other question, please share that with us so that we will be able to include that in the next webinar that we will have shortly. Thank you very much to all the audience for staying with us, and to you specifically, August. It was really a pleasure having you with us.
For me too. And thank you, and everyone.
Thank you too. And we will share with all of the participants the contact details of both Szutest and ADRES. So if you have any specific questions that you want to follow up on, you can contact us directly. And stay tuned to our next webinars that we will have. Thank you very much, because I think this was very illuminating for our audience. I can see that there is a lot of interest in this issue, and I'm happy that we can help the startups and the companies that need these services. So thank both of you, and thank you, the audience. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.